All right, let's jump right into today's explainer because we are looking at a monument you have probably seen a million times, but from a completely different angle, the Statue of Liberty. Usually, we're looking way up at that iconic copper torch, right? But today, we are looking down, way down. We are unpacking a super compelling, honestly kind of wild mystery, the secret beneath the Statue of Liberty. Because what if I told you that beneath all that heavy concrete in history, there is a hidden door, a door practically no one has ever actually laid eyes on? It sounds totally impossible for a place this famous, I know, but we're going to dig into the source text that brought this whole legend to light.
So, what was actually hidden there? Well, based on the text we're digging into, a lot of folks firmly believe this unseen door isn't just, a dead end or some forgotten broom closet. No way. They believe it actually leads to a massive, forgotten underground tunnel. I mean, just pause and really think about that for a second. A totally unexplored passageway sitting right underneath Liberty Island. It's literally the stuff of adventure movies. But it's this exact question. What could possibly be lurking in the pitch black under such an iconic structure that has just totally captivated people's imaginations? We are presented with this wild idea of an unseen door and a tunnel that essentially nobody even knows exists.
Now, to really wrap our heads around how crazy this is, we got to look at the timeline. 140 years, Lady Liberty hasn't just been hanging out for a few decades. She has been standing watch over New York Harbor for over 140 years. For more than a century and a half nearly, it's been this active, bustling site of huge historical importance. So the real head-scratcher here is figuring out how on earth a secret door in a forgotten tunnel could stay completely hidden for 140 years. We're talking continuous operation, massive renovations, and intense public scrutiny. It absolutely makes you question how keeping a secret like that is even physically possible.
And that leads us right into this absolutely staggering fact. Millions of tourists visit every single year. Millions! I mean, day in and day out, ferries are dumping crowds of excited visitors from all over the world onto that island. They're walking the grounds, exploring the pedestal, taking millions of photos. The sheer scale of public exposure here is off the charts. You would think that with that many sets of eyes scanning the island every single day, literally every square inch of that rock would be mapped out, documented, and completely stripped of any mystery. Yet, despite all those boots on the ground, the legend of this hidden door just keeps persisting, right under their very feet.
And this brilliantly illustrates the central paradox of this whole explainer. On one hand, you've got above ground, which is basically hypervisibility. 140 years of heavily documented history and millions of visitors. It is literally the ultimate public space. But then, below ground, we have this unconfirmed hidden door and a totally forgotten underground tunnel. The contrast there is just incredible to me. How does a massive, highly secure, incredibly trafficked island harbor an underground secret? It's like the ultimate dramatic irony, right? The idea that millions of people are walking around above, completely oblivious to this silent mystery that's supposedly waiting just inches below the concrete.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, where did this whole story actually come from? Well, tracking the source material, the breadcrumbs lead us to one very specific text, an old fictional journal. And inside, it has this incredibly intriguing but also super frustrating single line. It just says, a maintenance worker once noticed. That's it, just that fragment. A maintenance worker, somebody whose literal job was to poke around, clean, and inspect the hidden nuts and bolts of the island, actually saw something. And we're leaning heavily into the suspense here because it just makes so much sense. It only takes one person, right? One everyday worker stepping just a little off the beaten path to stumble onto a 140-year-old secret. That one single incomplete journal entry is the spark that lit this entire underground legend.
Which brings us to the biggest, most lingering question of all. What did the maintenance worker notice? The text just cuts off. It abruptly ends the journal entry and leaves us dangling on this massive cliffhanger. I mean, did they find the door left open a crack? Did they hear an echo coming up from the forgotten tunnel? Or did they see something else entirely? We've looked at the 140-year history, the millions of oblivious tourists, and that crazy contrast between the famous world above and the rumored darkness below. But that final puzzle piece, the actual details of what that worker saw that day, remains trapped inside the pages of that old fictional journal. So what do you think is actually hiding down there in the dark? Let that sink in, and definitely keep questioning the history beneath your feet. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we dive into more fascinating source material.